we are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
Welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. We got a super famous guest. We're really honored to have him on our show, Nicolas Hunziker. If you don't know who he is, you don't know what's going on because he is a big deal. He was automotive fine art. He's an artist and a race car driver. I'm sure you've seen all of his stuff anytime you go to a Rennsport or a Works reunion or anything like that. He is the guy who designs all of those shirts there and paintings, and we're honored to have him on, and we are actually at his location, his studio. Thanks for coming on, Nick.
Hello. Welcome.
Yeah, honored to have you on the show, and thanks for taking the time to meet with us today.
Oh, no problem. I mean, it's Mother's Day, so what else are we doing today?
Exactly,
right?
Celebration.
There's nothing going on, right? No, but let's get right into it. So, as far as like, I know you've told your story, so for redundancy, we'll be brief on that end, so you don't have to like tell that again, obviously. Okay. But as far as like the art design and all that kind of stuff, and how that kind of swayed in. Since we're Porsche centric, and I know you're a car guy in general, right? Like you like all types of cars, yes. And you're a race car guy. But let's talk a little bit about Porsche. What's your allure to Porsche, and how did that kind of like strike a chord with you?
In general, I think to me Porsche is a metaphor for life, because in life you can't pick your parents, you can't pick your DNA, so you try to make the best with what you've been given. Mm-hmm. And Porsche to me is very similar to that, because they were born out of this funny little car that had the engine in the wrong mm-hmm. place and round lights in the front, and they had all these parts, and then someone thought, I want to build myself a more interesting car, but all he had was what he inherited, right?
Yeah.
So and so to me, that's pretty much what life is about. And mm-hmm. to me, Porsche kind of fits into that. And to me, that gives a character, right? So that's why everyone is slightly different. And we just try to go through life, hopefully trying to make the best of with what we were given. And to me, that's what makes the cars interesting. Mm-hmm. Because if you were to, just in engineering terms, if you were to start with a clean sheet, you probably wouldn't put the engine in the wrong place.
Yeah, of course.
Nobody else is doing it.
Yeah. From a perspective of, like you said, like if you're going to blueprint something,
right,
and you're sitting down and doing it, you're like, this doesn't make any damn sense,
right? And I work with McLaren, but just as an example, I think sometimes McLarens are maybe accused of not having a soul, so to speak.
Yeah. Being well engineered.
But they're super well engineered. But case in point, they started with a clean sheet of paper, right? They put the engine where they thought it should be, right?
Yeah. The lowest center of gravity in the car, right, where the best balance is going to be. And so it's like they're kind of a victim of their own success, right?
Right. I mean, I've driven, I just driven the 720S, the new one.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's an incredible car, and it does everything so well. And to be honest, you get out and you go like, yeah, I mean, it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I'd still kind of want to get in my quirky 68 because it's just more fun to drive, mm-hmm. It has more character to me.
Yeah.
So, and I think that to me is what's appealing about Porsche in general.
Yeah, almost maybe like the flaws are relatable, right? Because as human beings, we're not perfect.
Right, and that's what sets us apart, right?
Uh-huh.
Some of them bigger flaws than others. You try to work with it.
Yeah, and some of the flaws we like that certain people have, and other flaws absolutely. We don't like.
I think that's what makes it interesting. So, and what I also like about Porsche in general, you have this incredible variety. You look back over 70 years, mm-hmm. The engine's not always in the back. I mean, that's just case in point 911, but you have the 914, and
correct.
Then you have the 912s, and the 356s, and then you have the mid-engine cars, you have the race cars. And now even, Porsche enthusiasts, they're into the SUVs, they're into the Macans and the Caymans and the Cayennes, and there's sport versions of those cars.
Exactly.
So for each of these people, there is a car for them out there. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's pretty unique.
Totally agree.
So almost everyone can find something. And it's kind of the same with people, right? They're not all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Nor should they be, right? Because it'd be boring,
Exactly, right? Everything would be robots, right?
Right, yep. Right.
We have nothing new.
Right. Yeah. So I think from that point of view, just why Porsche, to me, it's kind of like the closest thing, as if, if people were cars or
Yeah.
cars were people.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that because I think of those similar things because I like that it's not perfect, right? I
Right.
like that I have to work the car. I like
Right.
that it makes a funky sound. I like
Right,
that
right.
there's certain smells and
There's
the
still a key I have to turn.
yeah,
Right, right.
the imperfections become characteristics of
Right.
the car.
And also, like, even if you're just into I mean, obviously from a design point of view, it gives you a very unique shape
Mhm.
in terms of the packaging, for instance, right? But then also in terms of driving technique, let's say if you're really into the driving and you really want to get into it, it requires a different technique.
Yeah.
You do drive a short wheelbase car a little bit differently than a mid-engine car.
Mhm.
There are things you get into with weight transfer and trail braking and all these kind of things that make the cars what they are.
Absolutely.
And and some of them, and we all know, lift off oversteer and
Yeah. Have balls when you go through the turn,
Right,
man.
right.
Get in that
Power in.
right, or some people complain about like it doesn't turn in, there's understeer, because the weight's in the back, but
Mhm.
there's ways to come around that. If you know how to drive a car properly, keep the weight in the front, it turns in like no other car does.
Exactly.
And then since you do have the weight in the back, when you do step on it, all of a sudden there's traction because
Exactly.
this weight is in the back.
Exactly. Because you
So-
can power in like
Right.
when other cars can't power in.
Right. So I think from that point of view, it's almost like, again, it's like a person, the people in your life who you're closest to, they tend to be the ones who challenge you too.
Mm-hmm.
And cars, like to drive a Porsche well, there is a little bit of a learning curve. There is a challenge to it. And I think once you kind of are able to master that, you kind of make more of an emotional connetion to it, because
Yeah.
you've kind of, not that you've overcome this huge
Yeah.
obstacle, but it's
But you've
just,
accomplished something,
yeah,
right?
you've accomplished something. You've it feels more like you've actually you're bonding with it.
Exactly. Where you've kind of achieved something where you're like, okay, I know how you work, and now I know how to work you.
Right.
Instead of like, not to take anything away from the car, and we're not saying anything like that, but as far as a McLaren, where it's so well engineered, a very unskilled driver could get behind the wheel of that car and drive it very efficiently.
It feels like,
Right.
I feel like a superhero.
I mean, you could say the same thing about a 918, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a great point because that car is in that category. So if we're talking
Right,
like
yeah,
at that
you're
level,
right.
like if we go, okay, let's talk about, pre-water cooled cars.
Right,
like
right.
you got to earn your keep.
For
right?
sure, yes, for sure. I mean,
So, and I think a lot of that visceral feel, a lot of us that have experienced that or are continuing to experience that, I think that speaks to a lot of us, right?
no, for sure, and it's also kind of like part of this club or the fraternity. It's like
Mhm.
if I can follow a GT3 in my '68, to me that's just as good.
I agree. Yeah, I could follow that line.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever.
So I think that's kind of where the fun comes from.
Yeah.
And and obviously, since Porsches are so popular, the brand is so popular, just in terms of return on, in terms of a business sense, like just in terms of T-shirts, if we
Yeah.
make a BMW shirt or a Mercedes shirt or a Porsche shirt, the Porsche shirt would outsell everything
Yeah,
else 10-1 all the
exactly.
time.
Exactly.
And that just speaks to the love of the brand that's out there,
Exactly.
and why you guys are doing car
Yeah.
talk and not just
Car
car talk.
talk. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, because it is like a cult following. It's like a brotherhood. It's a frat. However you want to, whatever name you want to slap onto it, it's those things.
Right.
It is those clubs. I mean, there's races that have spawned just because of the Porsche following.
Right.
And
And I think what's interesting too is if you think about all these, like yesterday at Luft, right? We all
Mhm.
have Luft hangover now.
exactly right.
But if you walked around these different areas,
Mhm.
you saw these almost not brand on its own, but they kind of had, you have the 914.6s, and then you have the early cars, and you have the roofs cars,
Yeah.
the roof cars, and then you have the slant nose, and then you have the turbos, and the 935s, and the race cars.
Exactly.
I can't really think of another brand where you could have such a show with that many different, where you would have, here are 20 race cars, here are
You're
20
right.
different
to go deeper and
yeah.
layers into the brand,
Yes,
just not
and even
a
like
brand.
the little subcultures,
Mhm.
like it or not, there is no equivalent car brand that has an RWB, an early,
Yeah.
air cooled guys, R Gruppe,
Yeah.
Singer,
You're right.
whatever, Gunther Works.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
like
right.
it or not, whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to like everything, but just the mere fact
Yeah,
that
the
they're
fact that they
all
exist,
under
right?
the umbrella of Porsche is incredible, right?
Exactly.
You couldn't go. Ferrari has it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. What's
No.
the equivalent of our group in the Ferrari world? You
Yeah.
know?
There
I
isn't.
don't know.
Right. That's
Yeah,
what I mean.
exactly,
Like what's
yeah.
the equivalent of Gunther Works in the Audi world?
Yeah.
What's the equivalent of Singer
Exactly.
in
There, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what really there's all these layers.
Yeah,
to
the
it, you know?
subculture
Yes.
within the culture.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you bring up. That actually, we've talked about a little bit, but not like in depth like that. And that's a great acknowledgement to that, because there is so much of that going on. And it's great because it's great for the brand. It's great for all the enthusiasts too, because it gives a different eye, and especially from an artist level like you. Even if you're not into the car, maybe now you're seeing something a little different now. Maybe when you see that car, and same goes for us. Like maybe if I want to do a design on a car, if I take a little something from a car, to have a variety of a palette to see something, even if I don't like everything about that car, and I'm like, you know what, I actually like that little touch over there.
I mean, Porsches are great. Just even if you're into building stuff yourself, or if you're into modifying, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, there is a modification world almost into every car brand.
Yeah.
But what's great about Porsches is the interchangeability. You can't put a 997 bumper on a 996. You
Exactly.
can't put a 997 whatever intake on
Exactly.
so this is really plug and play. And it goes up to engine swaps and backdating and making it newer. I mean, and now it's funny. Like in the 80s, people were taking 1973 long hoods and blacking out all the chrome,
Exactly.
make
Right.
it look like an
Exactly.
SC because the chrome was out.
Exactly,
and
right.
then 10, 20 years later, someone's painstakingly cleaning.
Exactly. Somebody's
the
out there
black
with the
paint.
Scotch
Yeah,
Brite, taking it all down.
Like we bought this 96T now from Texas, and sure enough, the chrome is black. So
Exactly.
we
Got to get all that
we gotta
off.
go backwards, And we were joking, not to be unkind, but some of these, you all know who they are, but are we going to be restoring 964s
Yeah.
that are super wide back to bone stock C2 at some
Exactly,
point?
right.
Is
Yeah,
that going to happen? Who knows?
I have a
right?
narrow body C2, and I would never cut it up. I
Right.
love
I mean,
narrow
who
body
knows,
cars.
right?
Exactly. But
So,
it could be.
right.
Who
I mean,
knows? Maybe
they're-
when we're
they're-
dead and gone, they're going to be
Well,
doing that.
I don't know. I mean, look at the slant nose. If they're taking slant nose cars that were converted at great cost, right, in the 80s, and now they're being turned back to
Because nobody
Yeah.
likes them for some reason.
Headlight
right,
cars. Yeah.
So who knows what's
Yeah, that's a good point too, because you never think that, just because of there's so few of them, that are you going to bring them back to the way they should have been?
Right.
We that may happen, at some point.
It'll cycle. They'll
Yeah,
be
I
like,
mean that's
oh,
the thing,
yeah.
right?
They'll
That's
be
like
Yeah.
life,
Ebb and flow, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like fashion, right?
Exactly. Things are cool. 80s stuff is cool. It's like,
Right.
remember in the 90s, people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys used to wear that stuff. And it's
Right,
like, da,
right.
da, da, da. And now it's like, oh, it's so, it's so hip and stuff like that to do that now. It's funny how everything comes and goes like
Right.
that. But, so from a racing standpoint, I know that's your passion.
Right.
Your profession is you're an artist, you
right,
paint.
right.
How did you get to the point, I know it happened around in 2006, but when did the light bulb kind of really go off to say, like, I can blend these two things. I can blend my passion with making maybe a living. I can make a go at this. When did that kind of light bulb go off for you?
It was really just a product of maybe being somewhat unhappy in advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And it started as a hobby for me. So I in my prior career, I used to write TV commercials and direct TV commercials.
That's
Okay.
cool.
I was working on cars. I was working at an ad agency called Saatchi & Saatchi. So we did have Toyota and Toyota Motorsport.
Okay.
But then when I started painting, it really did start out kind of like when Professor Porsche wanted to build his own sports car. I wanted to have my own artwork in a specific style, which kind of looked like my grandfather's artwork, which is kind of this very graphic Art Deco style.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a spider artwork like that, and I just couldn't find it. So I decided to create it myself. And from then, it just kind of it just got bigger and bigger and grew. And then eventually, I just started making more money selling paintings than going to work.
And
You're like, yeah. Then it was a dollars to
turned.
cents thing, right? You're like, hey.
And so it's and it, but at the same time, my partner Heather Norwood, she's always been instrumental, and so she she's always supported me when, most people, when you have a decent career in advertising and,
Yeah.
you have a good life, and somebody comes home and goes like, yeah, you know what, I think I'm just going to be pushing paint around
Yeah.
and I'm going to sell that instead. Most people go like, no,
Yeah.
we're not doing that.
They're like, wait a minute, you're just going to transition and leave a really good job?
Right.
You're like,
And, what about health insurance? And
Exactly.
we have a mortgage.
You want to
and-
retire someday, don't you?
Right. Yeah.
You idiot.
So, yeah. So, but she was really like, no. If this, she could see I was miserable in advertising anyway. And so,
Yeah.
it is my passion. So, kudos to her for not
Yeah.
standing in the way.
Not
and,
going,
and,
Yeah.
and in the beginning it was hard. Now it's much easier now, obviously, like yesterday, this is my third interview this weekend.
Yeah.
So,
You busy guy.
no, but I'm just saying, the joke is like, you're an overnight success, but it took you 12 years to get here,
Exactly, right? We talked to the Ryans
Right.
about that,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh man, you just blew up. You're
Right.
like,
Like,
how do
no.
you blow up when you've been doing it for over a decade?
Right. Yeah. So, and so, yeah, no, she was there when, the mortgage was late for more
Mhm.
than once,
Yeah.
but it was never like, you have to go back, it was
Yeah.
always like,
Guess
no,
where you're
let's,
going.
yeah, it was really
Stay the
more,
course.
Yeah.
Stay the
let's-
course.
Or, it was very supportive. Like, okay, let's find a way of making this work. Who
Mhm.
else wants a painting? Can you
Mhm.
talk to this guy? What about this guy?
Yeah.
I found this.
I
thing
call
over
that the
here.
grind. You're grinding.
Yeah, and she was there, and and it was also her idea, like, to do the shirts, like the shirts you're wearing
Yeah.
now. I didn't want to do T-shirts,
Yeah.
because I'm a fourth generation fine artist. It's to me,
Canvas or nothing.
yeah, I mean, that's the gift shop.
Yeah.
I don't work in the gift shop.
Exactly.
I'm hanging in.
Yeah.
the,
This gets
it's the
put
gallery
in.
part.
This goes in halls of
Right,
like
right.
respected areas.
Yes,
like
yes.
this doesn't go on some guy's back
Right,
at a
right.
racetrack.
Yeah, and so to me, it was really like, no, we're not making T-shirts.
Mhm.
That's I'm a serious artist.
You and I are similar to that because doing this thing, Aaron was like, well, we should probably just make a couple shirts just because,
Right.
to get our name out. And I was like, that's not what we do.
Right. Yeah.
We don't do that. We're not
yeah.
a T-shirt company.
Right.
Like,
right.
We're here to bring,
Right.
to light our guests and get people out there. And he's like, he's a smart guy behind that, in the sense of like, well, we probably at least give people, people are interested.
Right,
Should
right.
probably,
Yeah, no, I mean, you kind of create a following that way,
Mhm.
And so when we started going to shows, you go to Monterey and you sell a painting, and at the time my paintings were like, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000, which, I
Mhm.
mean, it was good money at the
Yeah.
time, right? But if you don't sell a painting, she goes, you got to have a way to pay for the room, at least pay for the hotel.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, let's just make five, 6 T-shirts. Just give me 6 designs. We'll put them
Exactly.
on T-shirts. We'll put them in a corner.
She's like, I know this pisses you
Yeah,
off, but
I
I'll
know.
I'll take this on. Just
Yes,
give me the stuff
we'll
and I'll
do
take
it,
care
yeah.
of it.
And then it literally started from spare bedroom with what do you call those, the boxes, the clear Tupperware
Oh,
boxes,
Tupperware boxes. Yeah, yeah.
and T-shirts,
Uh-huh.
and then slowly, it just kind of got bigger and bigger, and then now we are, we
Yeah.
have, I don't know,
You guys
we
are
have-
huge, man.
I mean, it's relative, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're bigger than other people. We have literally thousands of SKUs,
Mhm.
but we're much smaller than others. It's
Yeah.
all relative, right?
Yeah, that's
But
true.
In
I
the
mean, on
grand
what
scheme
scale?
of things, in our world,
Yeah.
you may have heard of us. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So like as far as like when you're that T-shirt design and you're doing all that, but as far as that actual art portion, and I know you're a big race car guy, what's the who's your favorite race car driver?
Yeah.
To me, it goes back. So it's Joe Sifford and Jackie Stewart.
Okay.
It's Sifford just because we're fellow Swiss, and
Uh-huh.
he kind of had a hard scrabble upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
He literally went on his bicycle to collect old rags. He was a
Yeah.
rag, he was buying rags.
Yeah.
And little by little, he became an apprentice, learned at a body shop, and started racing motorcycles because they were cheaper, in
Yeah.
a sidecar, and then got into a car. And so I just admired the tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackie Stewart, just because I think he really was Sterling Moss was kind of the first real professional.
Yeah.
Because in those days, like my granduncle, Prince Bera, he was a race car driver.
Yeah.
But in those days, if you raced, you were kind of either of
You were somebody.
well-heeled or ready, right?
Yeah, you were affluent.
Right. I mean, that's what's called the gentleman driver,
Exactly.
right?
You were
So,
affluent,
Yeah, you were,
Yeah.
royalty or... You
Shocker,
came-
because racing still costs a lot of money to
Right,
do.
Yeah, they
yeah.
kept that
So or you were of means, or you may be from an industrialist of some kind,
Mhm.
And so I think, Sterling Moss's dad was a dentist, but he made it his profession. He wasn't, and you've always had the Penske's of the world, or in his day, Rob Walker, just Johnny Walker whiskey.
Yeah.
So there was always money, always came from somewhere.
There was a
right?
seat there if they wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and so Jackie Stewart, to me, I mean, he took it a step further than Sterling, because Jackie Stewart was really the first real professional where he goes, okay, I'm racing, but I have a life that goes beyond the racetrack.
Yeah.
And he really made that transition in terms, like he's been with Rolex for, I don't know, 50 years or something,
Yeah.
He's been with Ford, he's with Royal Bank of Scotland, he's with UBS, he's built a Formula One team. He's,
Yeah, he's learned to transition that.
Right.
Yeah.
And, he early on, he actually, before he joined IMG, he actually had this idea to build his own kind of marketing agency with Jochen Rindt and Piers Courage, because they had the Jochen Rindt Racecar show, they had the Jackie Stewart show, and they kind of wanted to streamline, or to have this little operation where you have these 3 race car drivers that could be hired, or to be spokespeople or ambassadors and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually he met Mark McCormick and went to IMG and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it really helped him. But I just always admired this kind of having a kind of have a master plan, even if you don't have one. At least it looks like you have a master
like a
plan.
roadmap of some sort. Even if you don't hit every stop on the roadmap,
right,
at least you kind of have somewhat of a direction of like where you want to kind of wiggle
right.
around.
Or
right?
one thing always kind of leads to another kind of a thing. Like for me, or just as an example, I think I forgot what when we did the James Hunt collection, right? We got a call to do the James Hunt collection, so we met the family, and we ended up doing
really
all this
cool.
stuff when the Rush movie came out. Right? And then we got a call from McLaren because they saw the James Hunt stuff, and then all of a sudden it started as a distribution kind of a thing, and then it turned into, oh, you know what, let's hire. We got hired to do McLaren 50 when they celebrated 50 years, so I got commissioned to do 13 paintings.
Yeah,
and then we did that, and then that led to being in Formula One, and then Kimi Räikkönen puts the artwork of the Hunt thing on his helmet. And so it's just kind of
just snowballs, right?
Yeah,
like
and
one person gets
right.
it, and it's like, holy crap! Some other person sees it, and
Right,
they're like,
right.
I want that. Like, we need to do that.
And so I didn't have a master plan when I started doing. There used to be this Porsche market letter thing. You may have, it doesn't exist anymore. So I used to do their cover artwork. So obviously, I didn't think, okay, my next step is to do Porsche market letter, and then I'm going to be on Kimi Räikkönen's helmet at
exactly,
Monaco.
right?
Yeah, I've got this now.
And then I'm going to meet with James Hunt's family because they're going to make a movie, and then we're going to do this. Like none of that's game planned.
At McLaren, and then then you're sitting in a P1 one day. It doesn't work that way at all.
Exactly.
But sometimes things just happen. So.
Yeah, and I think it helps too, right? I think for us, things are happening in the sense of like you keep an open mind, right? Like you're like things happen, and you're like you seize an opportunity, and then the next opportunity comes, and then you do good on that opportunity, and then another opportunity happens, and that's generally how like life works, right?
Yeah, for me, it was just there were dry spells, obviously, but then that's just when you just kind of keep working, nose to the grindstone, and like Porsche said, there is no substitute. There just wasn't a substitute. It was just hard work.
Yeah.
It was just 10 years.
Yeah, there's no magic pill, as Jay says, right? There is no magic pill. There isn't really in any industry, not even just like, in artistry or even the corporate world. It really is a lot of hard work. You talk to a lot of people, 90% of the time, maybe they don't tell you the long story, because obviously the long story is going to be very involved of like, okay, many long nights, this is what happened, this is what I was doing,
or
and this
a
is
lot
grinding.
of times people just see like the cherry on top,
Absolutely.
or like you watch, like I don't know if you may have seen one of the painting films I've done, like the time lapse. It's like, oh my god, it's so amazing. It was like, yeah, but I get up in the morning and I just draw ellipses and circles and straight lines. That's the practice.
Yeah.
So it's like sports.
It's your balance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like sports. There's a practice to everything.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said before, you're an avid tennis player and golfer, so you have that mentality of practice, right?
Yeah, to me that was, and my parents too. They were classical musicians, and they were literally my mom would literally be locked in a room playing the scales all day for hours on end. But which was awful for me.
I've heard this from Mom.
Yeah,
Stop it.
I've heard the scales. Yeah. It's not even a song. You know?
Exactly. It's just like,
So,
she's practicing for hours.
Right. And so I would hide in my room, play Legos. But I think the point is really more that, no, it's okay to shut yourself off from the world and and practice your craft kind of a way, you know.
Yeah.
And I am aware, you know, I am daily reminders or weekly reminders, and I have been accused of being antisocial. But to me, it's really more like I'm working.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. I agree with that. You know, I've been accused of that too. And I think that some guys like us and like you and we're kind of deep thinkers, right? Like we're
Right.
always thinking, you know, about something, you know, and you're trying to create something, or it's not that you're trying to be distant, but like mentally you're kind of like checked out in a way, but not just to be good, not to be checked out, not like to be an asshole.
It comes across as you're very aloof or you're not interested.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, the missus, she knows I'm not. It's not malicious if I don't listen. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, it's still annoying for her. You know?
My wife's the same way. She's just like, you're just never here mentally.
Right,
And it's just like, it's not that. It's just I'm thinking about stuff.
Yeah, I'm
and it's
solving
not,
the world. Over
exactly.
Here, you know?
Yeah, I'm problem solving in here. Like it goes deep in here. Okay. You know. But that's so awesome. So let's rewind back to the artistry and the painting stuff, because that's so beautiful, the things that you do. And I had kind of a random question just in my thought, because I'm not an artist by any means, but just like from when you do stuff at scale, you know, and I don't even know the dimensions, so forgive me if I'm, you know, way off base, but when you do a huge mural, and then you do something small like the watch, like the BRM that you talked about, like how in the hell do you, when you do something really big, how does something like that even start, like for you?
Well,
like,
it
to
always,
make sure that it scales properly.
It always starts with a sketch, period, and the sketch is always usually 8.5 by 11. So it's still a piece of paper and a pen, and then usually markers. So nowadays with the computer, you know, to me it's another tool. So I can scan it in, and you can change colors. You can put font and type, because I usually incorporate type.
That probably saves some time.
It's super. because you know, in my grandfather's day, he wanted to change the background. It's like do another sketch. You spend another afternoon making it blue, you know. And for us now, it's a great tool. You know, it doesn't do the work for you. But if you want to change something, you can just go, oh, let's just look at this. What would it look like?
You get an idea of it.
So it always starts with a sketch. And then in the watch case, I kind of have to simplify it just because it's so much smaller, so I have less detail to work with. And then you kind of have this middle sweet spot, let's say, if it's a couple of feet in either direction, like you have a painting that's maybe, I don't know, 40 inches by 60 inches, or 5 feet, 6 feet. To my mind now, I got to the point where I can take my sketch and almost, I know how much to simplify it so it translates to that scale.
Wow.
And then once, you know, I go to something that's 20 feet wide or 40 foot, like for a mural or something, it becomes a little bit trickier, because you have to take into consideration from what point it's being viewed at. So I don't want to get too scientific, because it gets a little bit technical, but basically what it boils down to is, if you look at your piece of paper of your sketch in front of you, that's 8.5, like a regular piece of paper, and you have your sketch on there, and you're a couple of feet away from you, you hold it in your hands and you can look at it. And then, so the sketch that you have, let's say we call that a window. That size sketch is a window. If you were to envision a wall,
whole, like
kind of,
yes,
you're not supposed to be doing that as a director.
But you're doing the whole like.
Not so much so, but if you imagine that scale on a wall or in a room, right? There's a translation there, even though one of them is right in front of you and the other one is eventually going to be on the wall. So I know that doesn't give you a super.
No, I got the idea of it. Like, and you know, when you're doing that, I can just imagine that being a huge challenge. But I guess, you know, when you hone your craft, right? Like for me, being somebody who couldn't paint anything, you know, and then when you get there to your level, you're dialed in, obviously. So that's not a thing. So you can look at a wall and be like, this is where I need to start, where the headlight is going to be.
Well,
so
no,
this
I mean,
looks right.
I do have other systems. You know, I use a grid system.
That's what I was going to ask. To me, in my head, it made sense to go, I have an 8 by 11. Okay, this scales into so many squares.
Yes, exactly.
Square,
exactly.
Square.
It's basically
here,
basically what they do with satellites, right? Or when they where you transfer coordinates on a grid.
Uh-huh.
So if you have a piece of paper and you put 5 lines across a piece of paper, you put 5 lines on the wall.
Okay.
And then you can basically...
And then you can grid it. Okay, that makes sense.
And then usually, you you might want more information, like let's say I put the black in, and then once I have all my black, I know where the shadows are. So I would know where the headlights are.
Gotcha.
And then once I kind of have my mid tones in terms of like, because my paintings are, the reason why they're bold is because I only use 4 or 5 colors. I have a background color, and then I use black, white, and gray.
Yeah.
So and the way I do it, usually black goes first, so that's kind of anchors everything.
Yeah.
And then I put gray, that kind of gives you the highlights, and then white, the mid-tones really, and then white goes on top of gray.
Okay.
And that's kind of where the sun would reflect off of everything.
Yeah.
And so that kind of when everything starts coming to life, because before that it looks a little bit flat.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have as much contrast.
Yeah,
from
I
black
see what you're
to white.
saying. Yeah, yeah.
So it's a little bit of a process, but yeah, I don't really think. It sounds very complicated now that I verbalize everything.
Yeah.
But to me, that's just kind of like
Yeah.
the mental math.
No,
you
it's
do as you go
interesting. I
through
think it is very interesting because it's such great art. It's like a lot of your stuff. It speaks to like race guys, and it speaks to artists, and like I have that art. I think if you're kind of a car guy, like you can appreciate the car for the art, and I think that comes through in your work.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. And a lot of it, I just kind of try to it's kind of a weird thing because, 2-dimensional, a painting is flat. It doesn't move, right? But I still try to evoke an emotion or kind of...
I think you hit the nail on it. I think you're doing it, no problem. You're not trying, you're doing.
Right. I still try to kind of get the element of speed or danger or, that kind of is coming into you.
Exactly.
And so...
Like it's moving, sitting still, right?
Yeah. And to me, that's kind of like the same thing with like good car design. If it's like certain cars, they just look fast even if they're sitting still.
Exactly.
You're like, oh my God.
Exactly.
And so I'm just kind of trying to tap into that every time I do a painting.
That's awesome. I have a question. Since you're in the artistry world and you're a painter, and I'm sure you have peers that are, and I'm not, a connoisseur by any means, but is it a dying art? Is there a lot of people that are getting interested into painting again? There's a resurgence, or is that kind of like a thing where people are like, no, just print it,
Right.
And,
honestly, I really don't know. In terms of, are you asking in terms of if generation, like, could you just do it on the computer?
Yeah, in the sense, do you have a pulse on the market to say, like, you're not saying like, oh, you have competition, but do you think that, generationally, is that something that's going to get phased out, you think, or you think that people are always going to want to be an artist, or?
I don't know. I think people are always going to be creative, obviously. And if your question is, could you do what I do on a computer? Like with a tablet and a pencil?
No.
Okay.
Like it's more of like, do you see young people being interested in painting?
Yeah,
essentially?
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's always good. I think, it's very primitive. They've had cave paintings.
Yeah. Well, it's an expression, right?
It's an expression, and to me, art is really like it's kind of a window into the soul of and there's this German expression Zeitgeist, which is like time ghost, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of gives a stamp of what is happening.
I agree.
And so, like, I did recently I did a commission for 19 Le Mans paintings with every overall Le Mans victory for Porsche.
Yeah.
So it goes from 1970 to 2017. But then, obviously, you have the car, but then the other element that I use is the colors and also, like, the typeface. So in certain pieces you look at, it's 1971, and you kind of get this groovy psychedelic mushroom period thing, what you call pure correct. And then once we get into 1983, it looks a little bit like it's the first beginnings of computer and maybe dot matrix, and the first you kind of have computer technology invading regular life. So you do see kind of the typeface that makes it look a little bit like that's what's happening at the time.
Yeah.
And then we get into the 70s, and then it might look a little bit more like a disco feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's what's happening.
Exactly. That's the period.
And so you can actually communicate subconsciously a lot just with the type, with the typefaces and the fonts you choose and the colors.
Like, people are like, oh, I get that. Yeah,
right.
That's what's
and
kinda...
you might not know, why does it feel like 1979? It just does, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I did it on, there's a reason for me. There's a reason behind everything. So, it's like a cook, right? So you're going to the pantry, and so you have these tools that make it feel like 1979, and you have tools that make it like 1983 or 2000 and
like more modern.
Yeah. So to me, it's just kind of, that's all part of my paintings, that you kind of get that feeling, like you said, it is period correct, just because. And that's always all I wanted to do is, also kind of going full circle back to Porsche. They kind of had this history of doing the Porsche posters, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So to me, I always wondered, well, what would it look like if they still did Porsche posters like they did in 1970, right? Or like Stringer did.
Yeah.
Because they did move to photography eventually. And to me, they still look good.
Yeah.
To me, they lose a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, what if they just kept painting?
Yeah, what would that look like?
Yeah, what would that look like? And so I couldn't
like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
that's what
you're doing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really great because, like, I mean, being in the Porsche world, like, I've known you existed for a long time, and when I saw your art, like, I never thought we'd be in this position talking to you, because for us, like, you're a big deal, like, and a lot of people.
I don't know. I'm still at home. I'm silly asshole in the trash out, right?
I think we all have to answer to somebody, like the general back home, right? But I think I'm the guy that still has to mop the floors and vacuum them, like. But it's I think at the level of from a professionalism level, I think. The people, everybody who is listening that maybe that doesn't know, like, they should look into you, because your artistry and, like, all the stuff, the posters and the paintings that you've done, and, like, how it translates to shirts, like, for people to get a little bit of piece, like you said, where maybe they can't afford the painting.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was kind of also a nice byproduct. That art in general is very democratic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can vote. I mean, you look at it, and
you're still gonna vote with your dollars, then.
Right, but the consumption of the art is free. That's where the democracy comes from, right? It's as long as long as you're not blind,
Yeah, exactly, right.
It's accessible to
as long as you have the tools, right?
Right. So
for that.
if you can see it, it's accessible to anyone. And so to us, it was important to have different entry points. So I get it. Not everybody can afford $30,000 for a painting, but you might be able to afford $1,000 for a limited edition print.
Exactly.
Or you can afford, I don't know I should know what the cell phone costs. But,
yeah.
If
I know what you're saying. I know what you're getting
for the cell phone, or $5 for a keychain.
You're a print, for the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think having different entry points into the brand is very important.
I think that's a great thing that you offer that, because some of that's like, some people have products that aren't attainable even though people like it.
Right.
And, like, it goes all the way down, even though you and I talked about this, earlier. It's like, oh, I don't want to be known as, like, a t-shirt guy.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's very respectable at the same time that you kind of swallow the pride a little bit and, like, kind of share the love. Because
no, I think it's a good thing, and it does help in general. The popularity of the paintings, or the popularity of the brand.
Yeah, because essentially, like, I mean, I'm wearing one of your shirts right now, right? And it's one of those things where it's, you don't want to get into, like, a whole, like, we won't get into this conversation, but at the end of the day, you do have a brand, and it is important.
Right. I mean,
and you want to get it out there, and you want people to see it. Like,
it's a bit like making movies. I mean, this is an age-old. You have this conversation or this debate in every industry. If it's cars or movies. Like, if you make a movie, at some point you're going to have to make a movie that people want to go see, right? So you will have to put people in your movies that evoke an interest, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, if it were up to me, I would be in my studio painting 1969 Formula 2 cars, and nobody cares.
Exactly, right? Yeah,
but I like them.
Yeah,
right.
Because that's where your passion is. Yeah.
And so, and obviously now, I mean, I haven't really painted anything for myself in I don't know how many years, because it's all
You're so busy though.
Right? Yeah, it's just commissions, which is fine. I mean, I am, I'm a commercial artist, right?
Yeah.
I can't complain about people wanting to buy things.
Yeah, good point. Is there a point where you've ever, and you've been so busy because you've picked up so much steam, obviously, since, like, 2006, when you've kind of, like, turned the page and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And do you ever pinch yourself and say, I can't believe I'm making stuff for Porsche. I can't believe I'm making stuff for McLaren.
A lot of
sometimes.
Sometimes I find it funny where, especially on days when I just paint only, because nowadays, I have days where I might be in the studio for half a day, or I'm on the road, or there's an event, or I'm at a race, or, even though Heather, she does run the clothing company and or the design company. So I might be busy like half a day designing stuff or something. But then if there are days when I just paint all day, and then at the end of the day, it feels weird where you go, I just pushed paint around all day. That's all I did today. I was just in my box.
It was a good day,
right? Yeah. But I kind of like it, and it does hit home, especially since I did just start in painting as a hobby, and it has afforded me incredible opportunities where I have driven, just looking back on all the cars I've driven. 99% of them aren't mine. But just the experiences. Of.
Those are priceless moments when you get to drive the vehicle, though,
and,
right?
And I think back of I've literally driven every RS you care to mention,
That's so
except
cool.
for the RS, the 968, and the RS Turbo. They only made 5 of them. I've sat in it, but I haven't driven it. Or whatever Moons and Spiders and 904s and Abarth Carreras and 918s and Cup cars.
The fact
and
that you
Grand
drove
Am
a
cars.
73 RS, I'm just thinking of that car right away in my head.
Right,
all the RSs you've driven.
Course.
I was like,
that's
you
the
drove,
icon, right?
Yeah, I was like, you've driven the dream car.
To me, it's funny because having sampled them, it's almost like sometimes you meet your heroes. And it's kind of disappointing.
I thought you would be meaner than that, but you were not as mean as I thought you were going to be. You get in the car and you're just I thought you were going to be evil.
Not to mention any names, but 964 RS. To me, biggest disappointment ever. And I know some people love those cars. But once you've driven,
a lot of hype though, probably.
I don't know. To me, it's just a weird car. It's because to me, RS is almost like a spice, and sometimes there's too much of it. And sometimes there isn't enough. And to my mind, like the 4.0 RS, if you want to talk about cars, the 997 4.0 to me is too much for the road. I think it's a good track car. I think it's almost too much for the
too
street.
raw, right? Too RS.
To me, it's too much. I mean, like after half an hour, you want to get out of the car. And
I think you have a good sampling, so I think your palate taste on that is good.
And the 964 to me feels like there's not enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't look enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like enough.
There's not enough there.
Yeah. So that's just my opinion.
Of course, yeah.
And then,
but I mean, it's valid because I mean, you've driven a lot, like you said, you've driven every RS you could think of, and the fact I don't think a lot of people can make that claim.
I'm sure. I mean, maybe Pat will give you a different answer. But I mean, just on RSs. Like
so
to me,
speaking of that, of the RSs, which one's
74 RS?
74
RSR. Or I love the long hoods, but the 3.0, those 0.2 make such a difference. And you do get the bigger brakes as well. And
just a meaner, raw car.
It's just incredible, and there is more rubber, but at the end of the day, it will still. You can still drive it at the limit. It'll still slide. It's just an incredible car.
Wow.
And it's just kind of, I've driven it on track and street. And even
what track did you drive it on?
I think we're at VIR.
Okay.
And even on the street, it's still, if you have if you have a good B road or a country road, or like here it's a Mulholland or Angel's Crest or something, or like the Dragon's Tail or in the East Coast. You can still somewhat safely get to where it's fun. Because that's kind of my knock on the modern cars. You have to go so fast.
Yes.
It was like the 918.
Because they're so capable,
They're
right?
so capable. The 918, to me, is an awful street car. It's an incredible little track car. You can go through a set of tires in a day, and it's the most fun you can have. You can overcook corners. And it's safe. It lets you know you overcooked it. You can have. I call it the hand of God. It's just kind of like, we're going over here. But it's fine. And it's incredible, and the noise and the exhaust right behind you and all that. But on the street, it's like, okay, I can put my foot down for 2 seconds on the off ramp. And
and that's it.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost like what the old cliche saying. It's like you brought like a bazooka or something to like a knife fight or something.
Right,
it's just like it's just like wow.
Right. And at the end of the day, to me, it's always going to be more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Yeah. And I think it goes back, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I feel about it too. It's you can use the whole pedal, right? Like you can go all the way
Right.
down,
Yeah.
like on the street, and not get
Right.
into legal trouble, right? Like you can use
Yeah,
the
I
whole
mean,
car.
That's kind of, on the modern cars. I mean, you could lose your license in first gear.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
There's 5 more to go or 6 more to go. So, but yeah, but to come back to your question, I mean, yeah, so on days like that, when you do drive all the RSs, or when we are on a track somewhere, or when I do get a free race seat or something, and I think back like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse
No,
my language, but
you can say whatever you
someone
want.
just put you on a plane, put you in a hotel, you came to drive cars, and now we're going home, and it's just because I paint.
Yeah.
Just because I'm pushing paint around a canvas.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah.
But you still take the experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely grateful. And it's just like, I was just curious because you are like, you do get to travel in a lot of big time circles and you get a lot of opportunities. So it's just one of those things. It's like, wow, just think I was miserable 12 years ago in some like his studio somewhere being a director, and here I am now.
Yeah, no, I mean that is
so
pretty
far.
weird. Or I got invited to present some artwork to Wolfgang Porsche on behalf of Porsche Club of America, and so I did a painting and we presented to him, and it was kind of the gift that Porsche Club of America had given to Wolfgang Porsche.
Yeah,
and to me that was really special, just because it's like, whoa,
Yeah, it's Wolfgang Porsche. It's Wolfgang Porsche. That's huge.
Right.
What's your last name again?
Yeah, exactly.
This is
It's like, this is a huge event. This is a big deal.
And
that's why you're trying, underneath, you're just like nuts. You're just like, play it cool.
And that's the one time where you give your phone to someone. You get,
Yeah.
I just want the I want to, I'm
Exactly.
not grab it off Instagram.
Yeah.
I want to have a picture.
Exactly. Can I have something, please? Like for this, because this is huge for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's
things
really
like
cool.
that are that's when he kind of hits you, or you go like, oh my God,
Yeah, when you're at that level. Yeah. Well, congratulations for making it to that
thanks.
level. That's huge, though. It's a huge accomplishment, too, to be at that level and to be in those conversations and being that guy where these big time manufacturers, you're their guy they want to reach out to when they want to do something like, hey, we're kind of thinking about a vintage thing. And
no, I mean, that definitely, that's also kind of the strength of the brand, that we've kind of gotten to that point where people think of us as, kind of this vintage,
the go-to for that.
Yeah, or anytime you kind of want to do something in the heritage inspired, we kind of bring that back to life. And I think it's also, I think it's great that all these different brands that I've worked with, not just Porsche, but Ford, McLaren, and Shelby, and BMW, and certain racetracks and all that stuff, that they kind of find it a tangible way to kind of build this bridge from their past to the present cars.
Yeah.
And I think that
makes sense.
I think it's great also, not just because it affords me work, but
but it's paying homage, though.
Yeah, and that old saying, it's like, if you want to what is it, if you want to know where you're going, you can't forget your past.
You're absolutely
right. And I think it's great that that some of these milestones are being celebrated.
Now, as far as when you get commissioned through Porsche or McLaren or what any of those big names, when they ask you to do something for them, obviously they probably give you an idea and tell you what they want to do. But after that, does it end with? Do they give you full creativity after that to say, okay, we need an RSR car?
Right. It really depends on who the client is. It runs the gamut from, we just want one of your pieces, to this car. You have to use this logo.
These colors.
These colors.
Yeah, this livery.
Leave room so we can put the barcode over here. So it and I don't mind it. I mean, to me, it's just another problem.
Yeah.
In a way, having certain restrictions, or not restrictions, but it's kind of like a performance envelope on a car. It's like if you had to do a car that could do everything, it would be Pontiac Aztec, right?
Yeah.
Sad face.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a tent in the back, right?
Yeah, exactly, right.
and so, but if I told you, no, it has to go at least 120 miles an hour, and it has to seat, at least 2 people, and all that kind of stuff, it becomes a little bit easier, actually.
Okay.
So it's actually...
So they give you a little bit more direction instead of just saying...
It's not a bad thing. And there's different kinds of feedback. If someone just tells me I don't like it, I can't do anything with that,
You want to expand on that?
Right.
Care to elaborate a little bit?
It's like, you like...
You don't like the color?
Right,
you just don't like the car?
Right,
What
or
is
someone
it?
tells you, it could be better. I mean, anything could be better.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right. So, but if someone...
This food could taste better.
Right.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah. I could be in better shape.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, so those things don't help. And then depending on who the client is, some are very detailed, and I don't mind it. And, they tell you, turn this around. And usually, I'm fine. I mean, I'm a working artist, so that's what we do, right?
Nice. Well, that's great. So let's transition a little bit into like your passion, racing.
Right.
How did you get into racing? Did you know from a young boy that you always were interested in racing? Were you one of those kids that like saw racing on TV when you were young?
Yeah, I mean, the racing was always or cars in general, that was always a thing for me. My dad had interest in cars when I was growing up. And,
what kind of cars did he have?
I grew up in the back seat of a bunch of Alphas, basically. So he had
Very cool.
Yeah, he had an Alpha. First, he had an Alpha Giulia. Before that, he had a Triumph Spider. He had a Triumph Spider, and then he had an Alpha Spider. Then he had an Alpha Giulia, and then he had an Alfetta 2000 GTV. That's the one where I was in the back seat.
That's cool.
And I had a little steering wheel that was attached to the front seat.
Really?
So I was like steering along.
Really? That's cool.
That's really cool. That was still my fondest memory of being a kid.
That's really cool.
And it's a transaction.
So you were having your own like driving situation going on back there. You used to live your own little.
Yeah. And that car had the tack mounted right in front of the steering wheel, and the speedometer was off to the side.
Yeah.
So it was.
So you could get like a glimpse of that too, huh?
Right.
When
yeah.
you're driving.
The speed was right in front of you, but then what was important was the tack was right in front of you. And then, and it's a transaxle car, so you're actually, if you sit in the back, you kind of get the whole, NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness.
Exactly. You're getting everything
translated. Yeah. So I always loved cars, and all my school books were full of car sketches and all that stuff.
Yeah, you're just like, we're sitting there like they're discussing history or like talking about algebra, and you're drawing pictures of cars.
Always cars, yeah. And then, so, I watched racing, I watched Formula One, I was big into DTM at the time.
So I have a question, that's my question. What do you think about Mercedes not being in DTM anymore? And then switching up with
I
Aston?
mean, honestly, I think it's a mistake, but at the same time, those decisions are just, there's always a corporate, these are corporate decisions at this point, right? I think historically it's a shame just because, I think they should be part of it, but at the same time, I think DTM has kind of not lost their way, but it's almost a little bit like Formula One. It's so evolved.
So technical. It's not technical. What it used to be.
No, and
E30s.
It's kind of
Back when it just used to be a gutted sedan.
Right. And I understand it in terms of you want to create parity, but I mean at the time DTM had this weight system, right? So you had a little box and they would put lead bars in there, and I thought that was a good system.
Yeah.
And it's the same conversation with NASCAR in terms of like how do you create an equal playing field?
Exactly.
I think some race series have gone too far because it's kind of become a silhouette series, or it's just.
I totally agree with that.
But just growing up, it was the E30 M3s and the 190, the Mercedes 190 AMG 25 16 Evo and the Evo 2.
Yep.
And then the Audi came along, and they even had a Ford Mustang in there.
Yeah.
The Opel Calibra, all these kind of cars. So that's kind of the stuff that I grew up with. And also the rally cars, the Lancia Stratos.
Yeah.
The Lancia Delta Integrale, the S4,
those
the Peugeot
races,
205s, all that stuff, So that was kind of what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And then, once, obviously, racing again, you kind of need the means,
Yeah, exactly.
I even though my grandmother had a title, but I don't come from means,
Exactly, right.
So, once I could afford it, I
You're
did
like,
go
I am royalty, kind
of,
I guess,
well,
but
my grandmother
I still need to pay my way. Like,
right. So I just actually went to Skip Barber Race School when they were still at Laguna Seca.
Yeah,
that's where
I've heard that's an awesome school.
It was great at the time. I mean, Laguna Seca is a great track to learn, I think, because the speeds aren't super high, but it's very technical.
Yeah.
So you actually do learn a lot about car control and
Yeah.
And it's a tricky track, you know. I mean, tricky. It's a technical track.
Yeah, exactly.
And I loved the experience. And I've just always been into open wheelers, you know, just in general, because I always loved Formula One as a kid.
And I was gonna say, like you kind of hinted on it earlier with Formula 2. Like
yeah,
you're
Formula
like
2,
I would
Lotus,
like to, I would like
all
to
that
be
stuff.
painting Formula 2.
Well,
So-
also, and you know, to me, I think they're slightly cheaper to acquire, just because the market of people who want to sit on a skateboard
yeah,
doing 130 miles an
exactly,
hour is not as
right.
big as people who want to sit in the
a
sedan.
full cockpit. Yeah.
So, you know, comparatively speaking, or in terms of like, you know, lap times divided by money, the Formula cars are always going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to do.
Yeah,
if
that
I
makes
wanna go
sense.
race.
That's really cool. But so what races do you race in with your Lotus?
So this year I was at Willow Springs. I've done Laguna Seca. I was at Sonoma.
Okay.
I was supposed to go, and then we kind of had as you run into problems as you do. So right now we're fixing the front suspension.
Now, what series is that?
It's this vintage racing.
Vintage
so
racing
I was
series.
with HMSA. I
Okay.
mean, I'm actually part of the Crossflow Cup,
Okay.
which is this really cool series where they're all Formula Fords from 1967 to 1972.
Okay.
And at some races, we have over 50 cars.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's
specific.
a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
and
That's a lot of cars for
Yeah,
that.
it's pretty cool. So we have 50 cars of some. I think at Laguna we had maybe like 57 cars.
Wow.
So Andrew Waite, who's he's an avid racer from San Francisco area, he kind of put together this whole group, and it's called the Crossflow Cup because we all have Crossflow engines.
Okay.
And so it's the 50th anniversary of Formula Ford.
Yeah.
So he put together this whole race series where we all race against each other. We all have the same amount of horsepower. We have scales. We have, you know, you can't cheat.
Okay.
So
So there's some
it's
sanctioning.
driver,
Yeah.
driver.
it's just a driving series.
Yeah.
you know,
So
it's
there's
just-
spec to it. Yeah.
exactly, and you know the whole point of Formula Ford was the springboard into Formula 2 and Formula 1. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I remember.
mean,
Yeah, if
I mean-
anybody's watched that James Hunt movie,
Yeah,
when you watch
James
him,
Hunt,
when you
he
watch
was in
him
a
climb the
Formula Ford.
when you
and-
watch him climb the ladder.
Right, and you know Ayrton Senna was in a Ford. And,
Exactly.
Mark Webber was in a Ford, and you know
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of the go-to. I mean, it still is to some people.
Yeah.
You know, after karting, you go into Formula Ford.
Exactly.
And then to me, I felt, you know, if you learn how to drive a Ford quickly, you can probably drive anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I think it's a good
Gives you a strong
basis.
base, though, right?
Yeah, for sure, because it's a momentum car. There's no horsepower to make up
Yeah.
for bad habits or mistakes.
Exactly right.
Because
Because you're just going to be super slow if you do continue those bad habits.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there, I got a seat this year in a 68 911 Trans Am car.
That's awesome.
So we were supposed to do some. I think we're going to run Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta.
Is that in the classic series as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Virginia International Raceway, which is one
Okay.
of my favorite tracks.
Yeah.
And I think hopefully we'll also do Sebring and Daytona Classic.
Man, I hope so. I want to see
Yeah.
you out there. That'd be awesome.
No, I mean, and that's a completely different driving, but it's
Yeah.
just the car just sounds so good. You know?
Oh, it's
it's like a Le Mans soundtrack.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah. I mean, it fulfills two things, right? Like you're racing, you enjoy the racing part, and then it gives you the feels of like, oh my god, this thing sounds so amazing.
Yeah, no,
you know?
it's incredible. And obviously, you know, there's the competition aspect, obviously, you know, because you do race against other
Yeah.
people. You do
You
race
being
against
competitive? No.
you do race against the clock, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny because yesterday we were tooling around in the 68 all day, and every time you step on the gas, I always ask myself, how can anyone not be into this?
Yeah. You're like, how could you not
could you
love
not
that
like that?
sound?
But I know millions of people aren't. I mean,
Yeah.
we have some younger people working for us, and they don't care.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even have cars.
Yeah, it's
They
kind
bought
of
a
wild to
Prius,
think about
you know.
that generation, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but I think that was the great thing about Luft. Is
Yeah.
that
That showed you there's
did see
Yeah.
so many people.
it's
a lot of
Patrick's
young-
trying to help
yeah,
bridge
and I
that,
think that was
right?
kind of his whole point of Luft
Yeah.
in general, of kind of
Yeah.
building, kind of taking it outside of
Yeah.
the Pebble Beach Concours
Mhm.
or Rent Sport.
Yeah,
or
breaking down those barriers
Monterey.
of like,
Yeah,
You're like, hey, these are cool cars. You
Right,
can come
right.
to them, and it's not pretentious, and you don't have to
No,
wear a
no,
suit
no.
and tie and
Right.
jacket.
Yeah,
and
you don't have to have a straw hat. and all
exactly
that
right. Yeah, you don't have to wear seersucker pants
Right.
and like
I mean, like it or not, I mean, there's, they have I think they have their place as well because they do a lot of, in terms of, history preservation. I think, so everything kind of has its place,
Yeah.
but it's not what I'm into personally.
Yeah.
I like race cars.
Yeah, you're a track monkey, right?
and
Like
I-
you
I
love the
don't-
track, you love
right,
the
I
smells, the
don't-
feels.
or just, like driving on Mulholland Drive. Or,
Yeah. So like what we say, you're a motorsport guy.
Right.
You're
yeah.
like us. We're motorsport
Right,
guys.
yeah,
Like if you tell me like if I can be free and have unlimited money and funds, you'd probably either catch me on the track or driving in a car at some point
Right.
if I'm not at the track, either coming from the track, going to the track, or drive or pretend going for a drive around town.
Right.
Like that's how you would catch me.
Right,
If
right.
during the waking hours, that's how you would catch me.
Right.
And I think that's where we share a lot of the common bonds.
No, for sure. I mean, so yeah, but I mean, obviously not everyone's into it. So.
Yeah. So as far as your progression, do you think that with racing, are you happy with where you're racing? You'll always want to race in the classic. Do you ever think you want to elevate and continue to strive to like maybe go to the next level?
I'm really torn. I mean, part of me thinks like at some point I need to get to, I mean, obviously there's steps involved, but the ultimate goal is that you race at Le Mans or something because my granduncle was there.
Exactly.
But then
that's
think,
the ultimate racer
Right,
goal, right?
yeah,
Like to
but
get a
then
seat, like even in
right.
just 4 hours or something.
Yeah, just do it, do the stints and
Yeah.
all that stuff. But then I think about, well, I would have to work a paddle shifter car, and then the appeal already goes down a little bit because I've driven those cars, and to me it's just not the same involvement.
Yeah, it's not as sexy.
No.
You're like, can you get me out there in a 917? Is
Right,
there a
right.
vintage Le Mans class that I can
actually,
run?
there
Yeah.
is. There is Le Mans Classic,
Yeah.
It's not as...
Yeah, it doesn't have the cachet, right?
Right, and it's not as hardcore, and the race isn't 24 hours. It's
Exactly.
a couple of hours and all that stuff. But, so that's kind of... Every time I catch myself saying, like, maybe I should take steps to finding... I mean, I might be doing some races in a Grand Am car, which is like a cup car, basically. But,
yeah.
It's, again, it's like you kind of get to that point of just personally from the driving involvement, not to take anything away from the skill of modern drivers, because it just is a different skill.
It is.
It's absolute efficiency is what it is.
Yeah,
it's
to
absolute
learn it.
efficiency. It's almost like playing PlayStation at 200 miles
Exactly.
an hour, right? They have all the buttons, and you're part of the engineering team,
Yeah.
Whereas in the old days, you just got in and drove the pants off of it.
And it's funny you say that because we were friends with a couple guys who have used to race, in GT LM cars
Right.
that don't race anymore, and they were saying how it became so unfun for them
Right.
because everything from the at the factory level or a team sponsoring it, like everything matters, right? Even down to the tires.
Yeah.
Like your fuel efficient.
Right,
like you should be in this gear through this at this speed.
Right.
And you're like, but I'm faster than that.
Right.
They're
No,
like,
I
it doesn't
get it.
matter
I mean,
that you're
I mean,
faster than that. You're running through tires.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I get all that part.
Yeah.
I mean, with Pat, he doesn't drive 10/10s.
Yeah.
It's really, he drives to a certain lap time. He
Well,
doesn't left foot brake. It uses
Exactly.
too much
They're driving to
fuel
a schedule.
Yeah, and someone's doing the math, and if
They're
you
watching
have
the engineers are watching the algorithm, and they're like, look,
if
man.
fewer stops means less time
Yes.
fueling and all that kind of stuff. So I get all that part, and
And a lot of them said that's what takes a lot of the fun out of it, though,
and
because
actually,
it's so like.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Pat actually, he tells me, like, actually, you know what, I think you're just doing the fun stuff because he loves going to Monterey.
Yeah.
He loves going to the vintage races because
Yeah,
that's just fun.
Exactly.
To him, right? And it says, well, because I said to him, sometimes I think I should try to do more, more, like more modern stuff. And he goes like, yeah, but you're just having fun.
Exactly.
Like, what's wrong with that?
Exactly. You're like, yeah, I'm just going to stay in the HSR racing circuit. Like, let's just do that.
I see the appeal. And I mean, this is a weird thing to say, but I don't know if it's true, but I think there is a different element of danger involved with older cars.
Absolutely. I think so too. I mean, like we talked about before, I mean, it's
I mean, it depends on what tracks you are. And
Yeah.
also, where you're. I mean, certain tracks like Bathurst,
Yeah.
Nordschleife, they're always going to be dangerous.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm not saying this is the reason why you do it, but like, it's almost kind of like a man's man, right? Like you're like, I'm driving like a real car,
right,
like, and I think you're
Right.
it's mechanical.
It's mechanical, and there's kind of a sense of accomplishment if
I agree.
you made it through Willow Springs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like, an old, bull rider or an equestrian
Right,
person.
right.
You're like, man, this thing was fighting me all day
Right,
today,
right.
and like we had a good race still.
Right. Or, I mean, just historically, you think about motorcycle clubs and hot rodding, these were all ex-pilots that
Yeah.
came back from the war, or,
Yeah.
GIs who came back and go like, well, no one's shooting at me.
We need
Yeah.
some adrenaline out.
Right,
How do we
right.
get
It can't
this
just
out?
be going to the grocery store
Yeah.
and buying, processed cheese.
exactly.
Something has to happen. in
Exactly.
between,
You're
right?
like, I love you, babe, but I
Right,
cannot
right.
sit here on the couch
Right.
and just hang out all day.
Right.
Like,
So-
I got to get this out.
to a certain extent, you just kind of need that where you go, okay,
Hmm.
this might not be the safest thing to do, but we still need to do this.
Yeah, that's really cool. So have you ever tracked your 68?
Yeah, I've had it on track. To be honest, it's not the best track tool. You know,
Yeah.
I have the saying, it's like if you want to go faster, get a faster car.
Yeah.
So it is a street car.
Yeah.
It is kind of like a rally
It's
car.
your canyon car, your
Yeah,
fun,
it's a great
your fun
canyon
car.
car. I mean, on track, it's relatively soft because obviously the torsion bar suspension, as you know, it works best because it soaks up a lot of bumps. So it is very compliant.
Yeah,
It's actually more comfortable than a GT3, which
Yeah.
crashes over all the bumps and everything.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But-
harsh. The spring rate is like
Right,
nothing.
right. No, right. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's torsion bars. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so having it on track, it's like you're leaning. I mean, in every which direction.
Yeah.
And I had. I
You're
think
like
I had-
body roll.
Yeah. I had Chad McQueen behind me, and he was in a more modern car, and he was just laughing out loud. He came back and was like, "Oh my God, this looks so funny. You're just going so slow." And I go like, "I'm balls to the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't go faster."
Like,
And
give in her. She's all she's
I
got,
know,
Captain.
I know, literally. And you're just going like,
Yeah.
you're just sweeping everything's drifting.
Uh-huh.
So it's not the best track tool in the world, but. So if you set it up for properly racing, which like the Trans Am car, which is properly set up, it would just be an awful street car.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of
Yeah, I always
think
tell
a lot
people
of
like
listeners
that.
have that, right? They kind of have this hybrid track car, street car, and then at the end of the day, it's like
It sucks
That's
in both places,
Right.
right?
You-
That's
you
always I always
right,
say.
right.
It's, I'm laughing because
you ruin a perfectly good street car that's never going to be fast enough on track. And then, or
Exactly.
you have a track car that you always go like, I have got to go to monoball suspension,
exactly.
Right.
Because it can't live in that space
No.
of in between, right?
Right.
And that's what a lot of people, I think, like they gray the area. And I always tell them, it's like you should have a dedicated track car.
Right.
You should have a dedicated
I think
street
by the
car
time
if that's where you really want to be.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone has the means, I mean,
You're right.
And
You're
some
right.
people, and I think it works with the older cars, like maybe like a 70s, 80s car.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, Jack Olson did a great thing.
Oh yeah,
his,
Jack's car is great.
His car is engineered.
Yeah.
I don't know how comfortable he's on the street, but
Yeah.
I see him driving around.
Yeah.
So
Drove it to Luft.
you're right. Yeah,
must
I mean,
be okay.
Fair play to him.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, right.
He made it work, but just I think there are faster ways around the track. And
I
with
agree.
more modern cars, I think it's just an engineering loop you can't close.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think if you want, I think you should have if you want to be on track and have a street car, I would almost tell people, build the street car of your dreams, buy a spec Miata.
Yeah.
And go.
Yeah, really. And I've heard that many times. And it's like
because it's never going to be enough.
yeah. Yeah,
So-
I've heard that many times. Yeah, so that makes sense. So let's talk about your 996 GT3 a little bit. So you have
Okay.
a water cooled car,
Yes.
and you and I talked about it at Newcomb's a little bit, how much you like that car.
Right.
Do you think that's your cutoff point as far as new cars
Yes,
go?
Yes, that's the newest.
He's like right away. He's like, yes, that's
I
it. Never.
know this question. I know the answer to the question. So yes, for sure, the 996 to me is the newest Porsche car I would want to own,
Hmm.
just because of the size, packaging envelope.
Yeah,
It's the last Widowmaker. It doesn't have traction control. It doesn't have PASM.
yeah. So it really speaks to the ethos of what you are, right?
And
The roots of
not
what you.
just what I think Porsche used to be. They
Yeah.
used to be kind of like hairy-chested.
Yeah,
Let's tame the car, right?
agree.
And to me, and historically, I think that served them well. I mean, I understand, there are lots of lawyers who make lots of money and
Lots of safety.
right. There's lots, and that's just the times we live in, right? It's a sign of the times. So you can't be selling.
It's liability at this point, right?
Which is it's perfectly fine. That's just
Yeah.
the world we live in. So, but yeah, the 996 is to me is the newest platform. I would want to drive personally.
And like, let's talk about that car specifically a little bit. Like, so you love that thing, don't you?
I love it. I think it's a great car. I mean, and to me, it was, it's really the first modern Porsche in my mind, because it's the first time you kind of have somebody thought about the ergonomics. Because before, it's like going back to that DNA thing. They inherited the 901, and then it turned into the 964, right? Or in between, you had the G bodies, right? And then you get into a 993, the switches are still all over the place, right? Which is like, why is this over here?
Why is there something underneath the dash what?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any rhyme or reason. And you get into a 996, and it's the first time where someone actually thought, okay, let's figure this out.
You're like, we have been being made fun of for decades.
Right.
Can we please just assemble something and put things in the right spot
let's
for a
put
change?
the pedal in front of the feet and not to the side. All that kind of stuff.
Somebody just went white.
Right. Yeah. And
start.
And to that point about having the blank paper where you start. Yeah, that's maybe when a lot of people say, "Oh no, they lost it with the 996," because I know a lot of people who will not get past the 993 because in their minds anything after 993 is not a Porsche.
It's
right?
dead, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you have people who say if it's not a long hood, it's no longer a Porsche, and then you have people who go if it's not a short wheelbase, it's no longer a Porsche, and then if it's not a 56, it's. I mean,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, well, if it's not a Gamoon car, it's not really a Porsche. Yeah,
So,
you're right.
there's
so many different camps.
But then to me, the 996, it's the most modern car. But so it is. To what we were talking about earlier, it does have. Like modern ergonomics. You can sit in it for hours on end.
Yeah.
We drove it from Nova Scotia back to Torrance. We drove. We went through 19 states and
that's
whatever,
really
4,000
cool.
miles or something.
Yeah.
And we have elephant seats. They don't go back, but I mean, they're hard to get into.
Yeah.
But once you're in it,
you're fine.
You're fine.
You're
it's
in.
a great car. Yeah, you're in.
So you weren't like totally beat down and all that.
Not at all.
That's great to hear.
I know. We thought it's going to be, because I did it with my buddy Brett Sloan, from Sloan Cars, and it really started out as I found a car in Nova Scotia, and we were looking at shipping and all this stuff, and it turned into this hassle. And says, you know what, I'm just going to drive it back.
Yeah.
And he goes like, all right. And I said, do you want to go on a road trip? And he just wrote back. This escalated very quickly. And we were like, all right, let's go. So we flew up and we drove it back. But it's fine. It's an awesome car, So
and it handled it no problem.
No, and we stopped at VIR, and I had to, I gave him a print.
Track. Yeah.
I love VIR, and I know some of the people there, so they gave me the whole track.
Oh, that's awesome.
They got a
so
print.
you got to take it out there and play with it?
Yeah. So we shook it down there, and then we went to...
How is it out there?
It's awesome. I mean, that's when I discovered the gearbox is way too long because it's geared for 220 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which the car can't even do.
Yeah.
That's
what you and I were talking about. It needed to be shortened.
Oh, now it transformed the car, So shorter ring opinion, it basically has the ratios of a G96-96, which is the cup box, which is the standard cup box, 'cause you could get like short gears and then you get like Nordschleife gears and all that stuff, but just the standard GT3 cup box, perfect. Yeah. And it completely transforms the cars. I mean, half the times where we were driving it on the freeway, we were in fifth gear, and after 20 minutes you go like, oh, sixth gear. Because it's so long. Yeah. You forget that you have another gear to go. And now I think it's
proper.
It transforms the car.
Yeah.
I mean, to anyone who has a 996 GT3, if you can make one modification, I'd say the one. Yeah, shorten the gearbox.
So it probably, the engine, not that it's not responsive already, but it probably does it make it more alive, like in a lower RPM or? For sure, there's a couple of other things we did, because it's the old while you're at it, So yeah, slippery slope,
right? And it's the person who had owned the car before tracked it. And they didn't use the proper gear oil, so all the bearings were shot. Fourth gear was broken. We needed a new first gear.
So you need to do it anyways. Yeah.
And so it turns into gearbox is out, put in a new flywheel, and then obviously if you put a new flywheel and you put in a new clutch, and if you put in a new clutch, you put in a new pressure plate.
Exactly.
So it's like, and then you're,
Weird
seals
how
leaking.
everything's connected.
I know,
huh?
it's always the same thing, and your bolt, somebody lose Loctite on your limited slip, so we need to cut that. So it just goes on and on and on. But I think it's all good things. I mean, you go, it's not like, that's why you're in it, right? If
Exactly.
it were easy, it's not a software reboot where you just go, okay.
Yeah, we're good to go. Yeah, because
Right.
it's part of the chase. I think we're all kind of those guys where it's like, we complain about it to our friends,
Right,
but we
right.
don't. We're just venting. We're not really complaining.
It's part of it, right?
You're like, shit.
Right.
Like,
It's not one of those things that makes you sell the car.
exactly.
Right.
No, it's one of the.
Again, it's just one of those like characters, right?
Right,
It's like
right.
it's acting up. I got to
Right,
get this done.
right.
I got to get this done. And it's like it's a conversation
Right,
piece.
right.
Like right now, we were
Yeah,
just
yeah,
able
now
to
we're
talk
talking
about it,
about it,
right?
right.
You're like we could have
Right.
sat there and be like, it was absolutely
Yeah, it's
perfect. It
perfect.
needed nothing.
Yes.
I drove it
Right.
across the country,
Right.
and it's a great car. That's it.
Yes. You're right.
And it's
Boring
like,
story.
yeah,
Right.
it's dead. It's good.
So I think it's a great car. I mean, you can cruise with it. You can, we've been taking it up to Angeles Crest to Newcomb's, and it's a great car. I love it.
Yeah.
Did it always have the E88s on it that you have? On
No, that was another trade with it. Part of the
Why
art
we're
car.
in there?
Yeah.
No, that was a part of because the whole car is part of my art car project
okay.
where I trade. I build the entire build is done in trade from our artwork.
Nice.
So I
like
traded
that.
2 paintings for the GT3, and then I traded and
like
all
that.
the mods. So right now I have a full set of cups, dampers. I have the regular dampers. I have iBox. I have
Bringing back the barter system. I like that.
I did. I have H&R springs. I have KWs.
That's awesome.
I have the.
Anybody want to barter him something good for the car?
do,
Are you hunting? We'll tell him. What do you want to barter for right now?
I found if you have a GT3 R cup, a GT3 R front bumper, we're looking for that. And you don't, even if you know where it is, you don't have to have it. You just acquire the bumper and trade it back to me.
There you go.
Because like the E88 wheels, that was a trade I did with a gentleman in at Virginia International Raceway. He has one of those villas, so he's got a painting for his villa.
Nice.
And he cut a check to BBS, and they gave me the wheels.
Nice.
And
cool. I like that.
And I just got some new old stock GT3R front lights, the yellow lenses.
Yeah. I love those.
Yeah. And Pirelli, we did a trade with Pirelli, so I'm running on Trofeo R rubber.
Nice.
Which is really good.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And also
really
it's the rubber that the car was on when it ran first in Le Mans in 1999. Yeah. So I wanted to put the car on Pirelli.
I like that. That's cool.
So the whole thing is I'm backdating the car from a 2004 GT3 to a 1999 GT3R street car.
Okay. I like that.
Which Porsche never built.
Yeah. That's cool, though.
Yeah.
That's a cool concept.
Because to me, that's kind of like, to me, that's the first modern GT3. And interestingly, I was talking about this to the Ryans yesterday. You made, I don't know if you know the story, but when ACO wrote the rules for Le Mans for the GT3 category, that's why Porsche named their car the GT3 model.
Yeah.
Because it was going to run in this category. But
they're like, well, what do we call it?
It's
GT3.
Right. But then afterwards, they changed the name to GT. So technically, it should actually been a Porsche GT.
Yeah.
So maybe we would have Porsche GT and then a Porsche GT RS.
Yeah.
As opposed to
GT3 RS.
GT3.
Yeah.
The 3 is there because the ACO at the time, they had LMP1,
yes.
the prototype.
Yep.
I didn't even think about that being. It always confused me when I see the GT3, GT4 class. I was like,
it was just arbitrary a category that they had established. Because before that, they had the GT2 category, which was more of an evolution because you had the 993. GT2s that were running around with giant wings and all that.
Exactly.
And then
huge
GT3 was
that,
supposed to be more oriented towards the street cars, so the fans could identify with.
More of a race on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah. Exactly, right?
Yeah,
so that's kind of what the manufacturers
factory
wanted.
support, and they get the race.
Yeah. So the first two, or the first GT3s that ran at Le Mans, that was the GT3R. It was a narrow body car.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to keep
too.
mine.
That's
cool.
cool.
So I'm gonna keep mine.
That's
narrow.
going to look awesome.
And it's going to run the same wheels as same width. So we're running 8.5, 10.5. Because that's what they were on.
Yeah.
That's what they ran in 1999. So we looked it up in in the old 1999
Yeah.
ACO rules
Yeah,
to find out
exactly.
what the category.
Back when things, I think they still printed, right? It's like
Yeah,
actual print.
that's the tricky part, because we've been hunting down a GT3R manual, and it was a CD-ROM. And this was before CD-ROM, so it was just printed out. It was a binder.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could find so far,
Because it was in that weird transition period, right? Because or they were kind of cataloging stuff
right,
on
but
computer.
not really. And then the 2000 GT3R and then the RS model, that's the first time when you actually had a CD-ROM.
Yeah.
And then you could have a PDF now.
Exactly right.
But there is, so everything you have on the computer, it's always somebody scanned it in. So everything is like slightly crooked.
It's like to the side a little bit.
Right.
That's because they're like page 150.
Right, yeah. Someone took it to Kinko's and ran it through the machine.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but to me, that's all kind of part of the fun.
Yeah, it is. It is fun. That's going to be really cool once it's like all together,
Right.
And it's cool that you're doing the research to do that too. That's always like a fun little project,
right? No,
right?
it's all part of the project, and I'm not a man of means, so to me, acquiring it through my artwork, I mean, that's part of my life anyway.
Exactly. Plus, it makes for a really cool story, and then you get to build relationships too with people.
Right.
And that's what we're connected. This is what it's all about, right?
All these people who have done a deal with me or a barter with me, they're all part of the project.
Exactly.
And I kind of wanted to do it for my 10-year anniversary when 2006, 2007, 2017, that's when I started. And it kind of also just a little bit reactionary, because by now so much of my artwork is being pirated, where you can go to Amazon and eBay and buy fake T-shirts and buy fake posters.
Really? I didn't know
God.
that.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, it drives the missus crazy. There's so much stuff.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God, we found
that's horrible.
Yeah, but that's just a sign of the times.
But I was gonna say, it doesn't help you monetarily, but I guess that's flattering that somebody's copying your work.
I don't know.
They're
It is.
I mean, in a way, but I mean, it's
still stealing at the end.
No,
of the
but
day,
no, I'm not condoning it. But
No,
what
no,
I'm
no,
saying
I-
from
I
like
hear what you're
it's like
saying,
kind of
but-
like what the
But
hell's
no one
going
goes
on
to
here?
Steven Spielberg says you should be flattered people are stealing your
No,
movie.
no. I totally
That's
agree.
called piracy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not agreeing with it in a sense.
I know what you're saying, because they say,
But it's really
flattery.
it's really shitty that somebody's like
Right.
like stealing your hard work.
Right, but I think that's a sign of the times, because on the internet everything is free, right? And if you find a picture on the internet, why not slap it on a T-shirt? Why not
Yeah.
put it on?
Well, there's so much drop shipping now where people are like, well,
Right,
just use this royalty-free design. Well,
Yes.
this looks royalty-free here.
It looks, no one told
Yeah,
me
that's
it's
a
not
shame though,
royalty
because
free.
guys who are listening, don't do shit like that. Like that's bad.
Yeah,
That's bad
No,
news.
listen, I totally get it. It's a path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
You acquire it, and YouTube is free, and
Yeah.
you can. Netflix has 5 sister accounts.
Yeah.
It's part of our society that we have a certain expectation level that certain things I shouldn't have to pay for,
Yeah.
and I get it. But
I
to
don't think
me,
I don't think artwork goes into that
no,
category.
it shouldn't be. But that's just where it ended up. you
Yeah.
know? And I get it. And so, but to me, I'm still not happy that if
Yeah.
I'm on Amazon or on eBay and
I had no
there's
idea people were
fake
pirating
posters,
your
fake
stuff.
T-shirt. Oh, we have entire fake collections. There's a guy in Italy who's been painting one of my paintings 3 times already, and he's selling it, for the 3rd time. And
So whoa, let's back up a second. So he's actually like painting the painting,
it's the
like
same
with
painting.
acrylic, and
Yeah.
then like selling the painting.
Yeah. 3 times already.
Holy shit!
And it's kind of funny because all his other paintings don't look like that one, but that's the one he keeps selling. But and again, I mean, it's at this point you kind of have to laugh because
like from a legal standpoint, how
you could go sue. You would have to get a lawyer in Italy, and I
but
don't
now
know.
you're
just-
spending
that's
tons of funds
I'm
to like.
spending tons of money. I have to get a lawyer here. I have to get a
Yeah.
lawyer in Italy, and on top of that, even if we win, he can appeal 3 times because under the Italian
So
legal
hey,
system.
any lawyers out there that are high level or international lawyers that want to
Right.
trade Nick
yeah, absolutely.
a picture, an actual painting
Painting.
for legal services,
In Italy.
let us know.
Right.
Because that's crap. That shouldn't be happening. I know there's going to be some affluent lawyers that are Porsche fans that are listening to this.
Or if
Please
you
reach out.
want to trade me cease and desist service. and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
no,
something.
because I mean, I get it, and even with Amazon and eBay, it's in their interest to make a sale. So
Yeah.
why would they police it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, anytime you
Well,
have,
they do that until they get a damn cease and assist, and then they're like,
It's
yeah,
hard
well,
because
you're
you
harboring this person,
Yes,
so
yes,
now
yes.
you're just
Right,
as
right.
guilty as they are.
technically, yes.
Yeah.
You know, but they're kind of like, what's that game? The where you knock them.
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah.
As soon as one disappears, another one shows
Yeah.
up. You know, and they're all shell companies. I mean, we
Yeah.
found them in Singapore, and then a week
Yeah.
later, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's coming out of New Zealand. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it
They're
just keeps,
they're hiding behind
I mean,
like
that's
fake.
what they do,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So I get it, and so just the reason.
So
why
buy OG guys. don't cheap out. Like the guys who buy fake sunglasses too. You're those guys. Don't do that.
So, but just to go full circle, where we're talking about the fake stuff is that, to my mind, I wanted to make an equation where artwork equals car, and you wouldn't steal the car, because nobody in their right mind would go like, "Oh, it's okay to take the car."
Good point.
Yeah, why not? You
Good
know.
point.
Whereas people go like, I guess it's okay to download a movie. It's okay to download an image and put it on a T-shirt. But nobody in their right mind would say, just take the car.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, if I make the equation artwork equals car, to me, you know, that's the worth and the value that I put on what I do.
Yeah,
so
that's a good way to
kinda
try
a
to
way
like,
for me to kind of celebrate my first 10 years. I
Yeah.
mean, it's gone past the first, you know, we're now in year 12, whatever, just because, you know, I thought naively it was going to take me a year to do a build. But it always takes longer, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, exactly.
Just expand that time.
You were being optimistic, just like all of us.
Right.
You know,
it'll be
and like
done
everybody else that was trying to get their car into Luft and was like burning the midnight oil when the car's not really ready, and they're just like, "Oh my God, we've had a year, it's still not ready."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I don't have anything else for him. Do you have anything, Aaron?
No, I asked all my questions.
All right.
Good.
Well, thanks for, you know, coming all the way out. I know
of
you
course.
guys, it's a long trip for you guys.
Yeah, no, we enjoy it. Like, you know, like we love building these relationships. We love like telling people story. You have an outstanding story and like outstanding brand. You should buy his stuff. Don't pirate the crap.
Exactly.
Like, you know, to piggyback on what we said. But in all reality, I mean, really, your stuff, at least, you know, if you're a Porsche guy and you're claiming to be a Porsche guy, you should be seeing his stuff somewhere. And if you haven't, you know, look him up, you know, go to his website, you know, and buy some of his art and buy some of his shirts, you know, like go sport that stuff, because it really is. I mean, it really is beautiful stuff.
Oh, thank you very much. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it. And thank you for, you know, for doing what you do, because, you know, it is important that while everyone's having fun, someone needs to kind of document what's happening. Right?
I agree, right? Like, I think people need to catalog it, right? Because like someday, you know, we're pretty much the same age. We're going to be old men too, right?
Right.
And then 30 years have passed us, and they're like, shit, you know, it'd have been really good if we started like talking and cataloging this somewhere at some point, so somebody could go back and be like, man, that was badass. That was a great talk, you know?
Right.
Like Nick had a really cool story, and that was, you know, and like, you know, God forbid, you know, we all, you know, inevitably we're going to pass away someday. So it's going to be one of those things. It's like, well, that moment was gone, you know? So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And thank you for being a part of it, you know, and thank you, you know,
for having me on. It was
absolutely. And we really look forward to you having on again. You know, this isn't a one-time deal.
All right. Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll maybe catch you at the track in Sebring, and, you know, if you come out that way,
Sebring, for sure.
And hang out with you and come see you.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks,
Cheers.
Nick.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at pcartalk.com.